Nobody is worse than Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons might also be the weakest, most pathetic excuse for a professional athlete we have ever seen in not just American history, but the history of sports. I can't think.
Ben Simmons was expected to be good, like LeBron James level good, when he entered the NBA back in 2018. While he held his end of the bargain in the first 3 seasons, his inability to shoot the rock, the lingering injuries, on top of the immense scrutiny coming from the prowling eyes of fans and the media, eventually caught up with him, which has caused serious damage not only to his career but in his mental health as well. Now that he's playing in Brooklyn, a change of scenery might just be the perfect chance for Simmons to redeem himself and show the world that he's not washed or broken, as most people claimed him to be. But with that said, how exactly Ben Simmons can be a factor with the Nets? And is there even the slightest possibility that he could regain his old all-star self next season? Now, before we look ahead, let's dial back a bit to analyze how he got here in the first place. Simmons was actually as good as advertised when he first stepped into the league, as he consistently flirted with a triple-double stat line in his first 4 seasons, while winning the Rookie of the Year award back in 2018 in a controversial fashion. He's a 6'10" athletic specimen who can pretty much do it all on both ends of the floor. He can score on the run, has the vision to feed his teammates on point and on time, and can clamp down any player from 1 through 5. But while he can do all those things, we're all aware that there's one thing that he can't do, and that is to shoot the ball from the foul line and beyond the arc. See, in his entire career, Simmons has only attempted 36 three-pointers in which he only made 5. Now, just to put a bit of a context here, the next guy who got picked after him in the 2016 draft, who happens to be Brandon Ingram, has attempted 1,535 three-pointers during the span of 7 seasons. And as a career 59.1% free throw shooter, Simmons has been a huge liability on the offense end in crucial moments, as teams would often foul him on purpose since they knew he would just brick it. I mean, he was so afraid of going to the line that he got exposed so badly in a game, which literally ended his career in Philly. With 3.5 minutes left in Game 7 against the Hawks, here's Simmons backing down Gallinari on the low block. Now, after Gallinari slips up, he finds himself wide open underneath the rim with no defender in front of him. But instead of dunking it, the 6'10" Simmons passes up the open shot, which leads to Thibault getting fouled and splitting his charities later on. Without question, that one single play proved to be the start of the downturn in Simmons' career. And even though it happened 2 years ago, that incident has still haunted him mentally up to the last season. See, in this pick and roll action, Kyrie was able to set him up perfectly as he rolled towards the rim. But once again, he wasn't confident enough to take the shot, and so he just passed it to Claxton, who then fumbled the ball going out of bounds. And even as wide open as this, Simmons was still unable to finish, which is quite ridiculous. Now, whether Simmons gets out of his shooting funk or not, it doesn't really matter, because being a scorer is not his strong suit anyway. See, given that he's healthy, I think Simmons can be a game changer for the Nets next season by giving them a huge lift on the defensive end. I mean, most players would have given up on this play, but look at Simmons' effort and hustle right here as he sprints all the way back for a chase down block. Now, even though he's 6'10", speedier guards like Beal in this instance always have a hard time shaking him off, and here Simmons just picked his pocket using his long reach and ignited a fast break attack on the other end. Simmons boasts a 105.9 defensive rating throughout his career, which speaks a lot about his defensive prowess. And although it went down to 110 last season, it'll most likely going to go up again next season since he'll not be competing for minutes in his position. Anyway, what makes him an elite defender when he's healthy is that he's long and at the same time quick, which allows him to cover ground within seconds. I mean, this was supposed to be a wide open 3 at the corner, but because of Simmons' length and athleticism, he was able to close out on the shooter and block away his shot just in time. Now, with Sexton running the pick and roll here, Simmons was on an island guarding his man at the corner. But because their defensive coverage was bad in this play, Simmons was forced to help out on the roller. Despite guarding two areas though, Simmons made the right read and intercepted the pass, which he converted into an easy 2-point on the break. Simmons was one of the few guys who cracked into the top 20 of various defensive categories on multiple occasions, such as steals, steals per game, defensive win shares, defensive box plus, minus, and rebounds per game. And based on these numbers, we can say that he can become an elite defensive player anytime he wants to. Now, apart from his top-notch defense, Simmons can also give the Nets a help hand serving as their primary facilitator next season. At 6'10", Simmons carries the same eagle-eye vision as Magic and LeBron in terms of locating teammates on the floor. And the other thing that separates him from other normal point guards is his incredible feel for the game, which we all know is something that can't be taught no matter how experienced you are as a player. I mean, it looks like Simmons just threw a normal pass here to Saric at first glance. But if you take a look at the replay, he actually threw a no-look, between-the-legs pass, which found its target right on the money. And in this transition attack, look at how he faked the Celtics defense here, by looking at Redick's direction before handing it off to the trailing Joel Embiid for a monster dunk. Now in this play, just check out how he toyed with the defense here as he just threw it off the glass like Kobe, then gave it to Fultz for a nice assist. With no real point guard for Brooklyn right now, Simmons has a good chance of thriving in his new environment as the team's primary ball handler. With this said, walking bucket getters like Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas, and the newly acquired Looney Walker 4 will definitely have a field day in making easy baskets with Simmons' elite playmaking, especially in transition. Now, on the defensive side, the Nets could also pose a real threat with the size and length that Michael Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Nick Claxton provide in the starting lineup, while Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith come off the bench as reliable 3-and-D guys. See, adding Simmons into the mix will make this Nets squad a defensive juggernaut on all fronts. I mean, if you remember a few seasons ago, Simmons was nominated twice as part of the all-defensive first team, as well as a steals leader back in 2020. Then, Michael Bridges was a runner-up in the Defensive Player of the Year race last year, who also got his first all-defensive first team nod. And finally, there's Nick Claxton, who finished 4th in defensive rating and 2nd in blocks last season. Based on his performance in his 2 preseason games, it looks like Simmons is slowly finding his old groove back as he grabbed a couple of rebounds, threw a couple of dimes, and surprisingly, hit a couple of shots, including a tough fadeaway on the block right here. Even though he doesn't need to score the ball that much as the Nets already have a boatload of scorers, Simmons' ball distribution as well as the impact he generates on the defensive end is something that we'll be keeping an eye on. And with that said, I'll not be surprised if Simmons will have a major bounce-back season next year, with things looking up for him so far.